I hope you're doing really, really well. Happy Christmas. I hope that you've had plenty of time out on your bike or time on your couch if that was what you needed. I just hope you've been having a nice holiday season. I have, so yeah, all good here. Now, as the year draws to a close, I always like to have a little look back over what I've achieved, what I've enjoyed, and then I can have a little think about what I want to do in the next year. I also have to do this because obviously I've got sponsors, so I want to figure out what events I want to get to, and hopefully they'll support me to get there. So I always like to put together a little list of things for the next year, and I do that by looking back at the current year and deciding which things I enjoyed the most. So I've partnered with Strava, who have released their year in sport kind of report that they do every year. I always love looking at this because it gives you an overview of how far you've ridden, what are your longest activities, and I also like to sort of dive into the app and have a look at where I've been. Now, obviously, I haven't been to as many places as I would normally go in 2021. It has been a bit of a funny year for so many of us. Well, we've all had to think differently this year, haven't we? And that's represented in what you see on Strava. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull up my highlight reel, which is a nice way of looking at it. And then I'm going to have a quick chat with you guys about the things that I enjoyed most this year and why I might be doing things slightly differently next year. Well, interestingly, even though there were all sorts of restrictions in place this year, I was still active 219 days. I have to feel like I could improve on that. I am hoping to do a January streak, as in I want to ride every single day in January without breaking that streak. So that would be a good way to start the new year. My total distance is a little down on what I would expect this time of year. I have done 8,541 kilometres. I would normally hope to have done about 10,000 by now, but just doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, does it? Let's have a look at what my longest activity is. Oh yes, it was Transkerno. So we have to talk about that because it was one of the highlights of my year. Transkerno, was it the first kind of bike packing thing I did like that? No, it wasn't actually. The first self-supported, self-navigated bike packing event that I did was actually Bare Bones 200. But Transkerno was the first one that I did on the road, and it's the first one that I did with another person, with my friend Nikki. It was amazing. It's so funny. I was chatting to my friend recently and I was saying that some of my favourite bike rides are the ones that were just so extremely awful and so extremely amazing all at the same time. I always say it's a bit like a kind of life squeezed into a day or squeezed into a bike ride, and Transkerno was so representative of that.
Oh my god, look how terrible I look. What on earth are we doing? She is excited about eating. I just feel really sick.
It was full of highs and lows, and I remember at one point riding along thinking, this is awful. I am never ever doing anything like this again.
It's so hilly and we're really suffering.
So what is it? Let's go back to the start. Transkerno, it is a kind of checkpoint race. I mean, I think they say it's not a race, strictly speaking, but it's nice to get back to the start as quickly as you can. Basically, you are given 4 checkpoints. They're all around Cornwall, and you have to plot a route in between those checkpoints, the fastest one that you can, which might be avoiding hills if you think it's faster to go a longer way round, or you might think it's quicker to go up and over. Essentially, it's up to you. You have to avoid certain outlawed roads, which tend to be the big, main, busy ones, probably for reasons of safety, but also it just makes it more interesting with riders trying to self-navigate across, you know, tiny little lanes in Cornwall. So you set off at 6 p.m. from Plymouth, which means you have to ride through the night, which is something I've actually never really done. When I did Bare Bones 200, I actually set off at about 4 in the morning, so I did go to sleep, but then I got up and set off early. With this, you have no choice but When I say you have no choice, I suppose you could ride straight to a hotel. But for me and Nikki, we had no choice but to ride through the night, and that was what we wanted to do. So we set off from Plymouth at 6, and we rode and rode and rode and rode and rode and rode and rode. I'm going to link to the video here because you might want to get a more precise version of the story that I'm going to tell you. Suffice to say, we rode and rode and rode and rode and rode until at about 5 a.m. we kind of felt like we were going insane, and we lay down in a churchyard to try and get an hour's sleep before we continued. After that, I got so sick. So did Nikki, but we got through that, and eventually we had a few more fun times riding along the, is it the Tarka Trail from Padstow? Is it? Or it might be the Camel Trail. I told you should watch the video because it'll give you a better idea of things. Anyway, that was such an enormous highlight, and it's nice to see it represented on the Strava Year in Sport as my longest ride to date, and also my hilliest ride. I think we did about 4,500, I can't talk today, 4,500 metres of climbing.
Hurrah! Made it! Woohoo! Looking forward to a beer and some chips.
It's also the activity that I got the most kudos for. I got 2,520 thumbs up for that ride. Thank you if you were one of those people. I'll put a link to my Strava account in the description, so if you do want to follow me on Strava and see what I'm up to, then you can do so. Apart from Transkurno, there were a few other real highlights in 2021, and interestingly, a lot of those were mountain bike rides. So I've ridden mountain bikes for a fair while now, but I wouldn't say my enthusiasm comes and goes for them. It doesn't, but basically I kind of go off on a gravel or road cycling kind of trip and get really into doing that for a while, and I don't get out on my mountain bike enough, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, mountain bike. So that's kind of what happened this year. I dusted off the mountain bike and I got out on it much more, and that ended up being so fun. Riding in Madeira was an absolute revelation. I definitely want to go back, and I have been speaking to the guys at Trans Madeira about maybe signing up for that. It's a 5-day kind of enduro stage race in Madeira, funnily enough, and it looks absolutely amazing. Aside from that beautiful place, my other favourite mountain bike rides this year were bike parks. Yes, I'm a bike park rat. But I loved going up to Dyfi, the Atherton's Bike Park in North Wales, Revolution Bike Park, hitting up some of their jumps, and relearned to do some of the bigger jumps at Wind Hill, which is near Longleat. So suffice to say, I have been loving riding my mountain bike, and moving into the next year I will be doing more of it. Rather excitingly, after a meeting with Zip and Shram, who are part of the same company as RockShox, it looks like I am going to be repping RockShox in 2022. So really nice to have their support, and hopefully I will get out to some of the events that they're sponsoring, like Ardrock Enduro, which is the Yorkshire Dales, I think, and maybe out to Lake Garda for the bike festival. So yay! Back on the Strava Year in Sport thing, I can see that some of my favourite photos that I've shared on there are from Transkurno, funnily enough, but also from Grinduro. So that leads me neatly on to the other stuff that I found super duper fun in 2021. That is, of course, gravel riding. No great revelation there. You know I love it. I'm always trying to get all of my mates on my gravel bikes because I think it is the greatest thing that's happened to cycling in several years. I mean that. So a real highlight for me, although it was kind of a Marmitey love-hate feeling at the time, one of the most memorable events that I did this year was actually the British Gravel Championships with Strava. I found it really hard, hence the fact I'm saying it was a bit Marmite, because it was so difficult. That was 2.5 hours of hell. I mean, thanks for the invite, Strava, but yeah, that was pretty torturous. I can't even think of anything to say. I'm just dirty and tired. That ride is so sort of indelibly imprinted on my brain because of how hard I went. So it kind of seems like a highlight, even though at the time I was like, oh, this is awful. So next year I'll definitely be back at the British Gravel Championships. I'm hoping that I might do a little better, not that I did really badly this year, but in 2022 I am really hoping that I'm going to be able to go over to Kenya with my clothing sponsors Pedaled for the Migration Gravel Race. I was meant to do it this year, but I couldn't go because Kenya got put onto the red list, which means you're not allowed to travel there at all unless, well, I think you could travel there, but then you'd have to quarantine in a hotel when you got back or something, and you're only meant to do it if you can't possibly avoid doing it. So gravel race didn't really cut it. Anyway, Migration Gravel Race is a 3-day stage race. It's in Kenya. I think you're riding through Masai Mara lands, and you race all day, then at night you camp out. And I mean, it's in Kenya and it's gravel racing. What's not to like about that? So really excited about it. I'll be training hard for that one because I want to give it my best shot. And so I figure if I'm training hard for that one, it might mean that I do better at the British Gravel Championships. We will see. Oh, I've totally got off track. Going back to the year in sports stats, one of my most liked photos was from Grinduro, Wales, so I'm really hoping that I'm going to go back to that again. I was chatting to the guys at Zip and Shram and RockShox in a meeting a couple of days ago, and we were discussing their new Explore suspension fork, wondering whether that might be the one to run at Grinduro, Wales, because it would definitely give you an advantage on some of the more kind of mountain bikey downhill stages, but then would it be at the expense of the uphill time trialy ones, which I already suck at? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to try out all of this new gear. Definitely getting a dropper post for the gravel bike as well from those guys, so that'll be cool. Other events in my calendar for 2022 are... wait a minute. Oh, maybe Trans Rockies, which is a gravel stage race in the Rockies. I hope that I can get over there, but nothing's for certain at the moment, is it? That looks like a fun one. So maybe Trans Rockies, maybe Trans Devon, which is a similar thing to Trans Kerno that I did with Nikki, but it's around Devon. So another kind of overnighter, sleep deprived, kind of ridiculous thing. This time I won't eat a spicy vegetable pasty at 6 a.m. and make myself feel really sick. I'll definitely try not to do quite as many stupid things, but well, I don't know, we'll see. So those are my main events and goals for next year. Alongside that, the really exciting thing that I wanted to tell you, well, it's mega exciting to me anyway, is that in 2022, I am going to be doing some stuff with BMW Motorrad. So that is the motorcycle arm of BMW. So I did my CBT at the end of 2021, I think it was just in October, and then I went up to Motorcycle Live at the Birmingham NEC, met up with BMW, and we have discussed and come up with all sorts of ideas for 2022, which are so exciting. So first things first, I'm doing my theory test at the end of January, and then all being good, I'm going to be doing a direct access course with BMW Training Academy, whatever they're called, in Exeter, and hopefully I will then get my big bike license. After that, they are going to be delivering me a bike of my choice. How good is my life? Sorry, I'm just so excited about this. They're going to be delivering me a BMW motorbike to ride, and then throughout the year I'm going to be doing some fun stuff with them, such as off-road training in the Brecon Beacons, and ultimately at some point going up to the track in Anglesey and riding there. So really excited about that journey. I know not all of you are into motorbikes, but equally some of you really are. There's a bit of crossover, so maybe some of you will enjoy that content. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you guys have got some fun stuff planned for next year as well. I know it's a bit of a weird time in terms of planning. I don't know if all this stuff is going to happen, but it's nice to get excited about stuff that might happen, and then, well, if it doesn't, so be it. But I'd rather have a few things in the pipeline that I can look forward to. It just makes me smile, as you can see. So first things first, I'm going to be cracking on with a lot of training that Train Shop has set me, because I got a little unfit. For me, I mean, comparatively unfit this year, so I am going to be knuckling down and working out a bit harder this year, so I could share some of that progress with you if you want. And gosh, what was the other thing I was about to say? Oh yeah, and I'm going to be kicking off the new year by doing a Strava streak, 30 days of cycling. According to their Year in Sport little report, the most number of days I've ridden in a row is so far only 8. So with a bit of luck, by the end of January, I will already have smashed a new record. So that's kind of nice, isn't it? Let me know if you fancy joining me in the Strava streaks. Also, in February, I am going to be leading a Swift group ride for Strava. I don't know all of the details yet, apart from I think it's February the 3rd. So please make sure that you come along and join me on that. I'm going to be, what's it called? Live streaming. On YouTube and doing the ride, hosting the ride, chatting to you, so please come along. I'll post more details when I've got it. But yeah, I keep saying that's it from me. Now it really is all from me, so I'll see you later. Happy New Year. Bye.